On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we preview and predict Kansas versus Texas. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. So Dylan, as always, we begin with some basic game info for everybody. The game is on Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time at Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium in Austin, Texas. The game will be televised on ESPNU, and the Longhorns are favored by 30.5 points. So Dylan, what's your scouting report?
Well, Devon, I would say this isn't a Kansas team that's really any different than the Kansas teams of the past that people can remember. I mean, this is a 1-8 team with their only win against South Dakota. They did have a relatively competitive game against Oklahoma and Duke where they were kind of trying to make a comeback against Duke, but ultimately, though, they lost those games as well. Their defense has had trouble getting off the field. They're obviously susceptible to, the run plays. This should be a game that Bijan Robinson is able just to feast on if Texas decides to highlight him in the game plan, which they should. And then the QB play obviously has been shaky, and we can touch on is QB Jason Bean is questionable, so we don't know if he's going to be playing this game. I know Jalen Daniels played part of last game. He had 108 yards passing with a touchdown, but Kansas is trying to redshirt him, so they're going to be trying not to start him this game. Hopefully get Bean out there, but we shall see. They do have a good running back in Devon, so that's definitely somebody Texas should keep their eye on, but he has struggled behind that offensive line. And then wide receiver Kwame Lassiter, he's a super senior going this season, and he's got one highlight play against Duke. He had a 61-yard pass touchdown, but ultimately, other than that, he hasn't had the game you would expect out of a star team or star player out of a Big 12 team.
Yeah, and you touched on Jason Bean. He might not be playing against Texas, and that's something that might come down to a game time decision. So you can't really say for sure, but Bean has shown some things, mostly running the football, though. His stats haven't been too impressive this year, as Dylan mentioned. Kansas overall has struggled like they usually do in the Big 12. But Bean is throwing for about 139.1 passing yards per game, just to put the passing into perspective. He has 6 passing touchdowns to 6 interceptions, so obviously not a great ratio to have. And then his targets, as Dylan also mentioned, you have super senior Kwame Lassiter, redshirt sophomore Trevor Wilson, and a man I covered, redshirt freshman Lawrence Arnold out of DeSoto. So those are the guys to watch out for receiving-wise. For Brown, Bean, or maybe Jalen Daniels. But like Dylan said, Kansas probably doesn't want to burn that redshirt season that would be this season and give him an extra year of eligibility. But yet again, if Bean is not feeling great, you're going to have to start somebody. So they would have to be forced to play Daniels anyway. But the real source of, threat offensively for the Jayhawks, Dylan said, Devon at running back. The freshman leads the team in rushing with 56.1 yards per game, which is not great. But I also said, and warning for you Texas fans seeing quarterbacks that are able to run, Dylan, Bean is also an added threat in the run game if he's healthy. But yet again, if he's already banged up, how much can they utilize him in the run game? Bean's averaging 44.3 yards per game. So that's something to watch out for Kansas offensively. And on the defensive side of the ball, Kenny Logan Jr., a junior safety, leads the team in tackles with 70, which is also doing kind of a red flag in terms of looking at stats, because if your safety is leading the team in tackles, it probably means you have been letting up a lot of yards. But, he's still producing. You need someone back there that's a safety net, and he's done that so far. And then another super senior, you got defensive end Kyron Johnson. He leads the team with 3.5 sacks. So that's the guy that the Longhorns up front are going to have to be making sure they block. Last game against Iowa State, Will McDonald just kind of tore them apart. And so obviously this is a chance to start anew. And now when you're fighting for your positions, toward the end of this season and trying to make a showcase for the next season, this game's going to be even more important. Now, Dylan, who's your X Factors?
Well, like you touched on, Devon, this is a game where both teams are just trying to get to next season as quickly as possible. Just throw this away and forget about it as much as possible. But for my X factors, I'm going to be looking at both the QB situations for both teams. I know Sark recently opened up the QB position to see who the starter is in practice. So it'll be interesting to see if Hudson Card gets the start or Casey Thompson gets that back after being pulled from last week's game against Iowa State. So it'll be interesting to see how both coaching staffs handle it. But for Kansas, Kwame Lester is going to be a big part of this team. This is a Texas secondary that is in desperate need of more help, and wide receivers should be licking their chops. So big concern is the quarterback that plays going to be able to get him the ball, and if they do, this could be an interesting game for Texas because they haven't proven they can win at the moment. So be interesting to see how that goes. And then obviously on the Texas side, how will the coaching staff respond to just some abysmal weeks of football against some good teams, but games that should have been either closer or should have been won by Texas, after halftime. So looking to see the halftime adjustments if Kansas were to hit Texas in the mouth in the first half and see how Sark responds.
Certainly, and as you mentioned, the quarterbacks, Hudson Card found his way into the game really early on before the end of the first quarter, as Casey Thompson has been battling, I believe, a thumb injury, and it really showed in that first quarter. You'd have to believe at least was impacting him as he was making some poor throws. Rubber duckies might even be too much credit there, but hopefully he heals up within the next couple of weeks. If they decide to start Card in this one, maybe it will end up working out for the both of them, as Casey would be able to, just rest up the thumb, because that's, something that obviously could get easily aggravated every single week. So if you're playing and getting snaps every week, it's hard to just heal that up. So, either way, I still think Casey has a legitimate shot of starting this game. I mean, he was starting the Iowa State game and the thumb injury was already there. So that's just something to watch as we get to another game time decision at that quarterback position in this game. But Dylan, my X factors, not a specific guy here, but who has the heart and the grit like we're talking about and wants to play in this game, and who's going to make the plays when their number is called. That's my X factor. You got a lot of young players that are probably going to have their numbers called in this game. The last game we had Kelvonte Dixon. He made some big plays on special teams, but at the wide receiver position he kind of struggled. So I think that Sark is going to give him another shot in this game. He's already been tabbed as a starter for this game, so let's see if he's able to make up for it and show, Sark and Andre Coleman, the receivers coach for the Longhorns, that he is capable of taking Joshua Moore's spot. But yet again, I think this is open season for all the players. The best player, the best grit, the best heart is going to have to win in this game. So hopefully we see that on Saturday. Now, Dylan, what's your danger level?
I've got a 3. I mean, this is a game that Texas should win, but again, I could totally see a possibility of Kansas coming in here wanting it more and making it closer than it should be. I mean, we've got bad experiences with struggling coaching staffs going up against Kansas and hit the Charlie Strong era. So we'll see how this matchup goes, but I do believe Texas will win, but I am giving it a 3 just because of prior experiences.
What's up with you and wanting it more? Come on. I'm giving it a 2. I was thinking about a 3, but like you said, Kansas isn't playing too hot this year. The starting quarterback might not be available, but the thing that gives it that 2 is that they did play Oklahoma pretty close and had a lead for the majority of that game. Now, ultimately, like you also said, they did lose that lead, but Coach Lance Leipold has had this Jayhawks at least looking a little more optimistic, even in these suffering losses that they have faced. But yet again, Longhorns have not looked pretty either. I'm still going to give it a 2. It's a home game. They're expected to win. They're favored by 30.5 points. That's just something that they're going to have to prove on the field. Now, what's your prediction?
I've got a 42-7 win for Texas. I feel like they're going to get back on the right track here. Kansas is a game that, everyone should be able to get some snaps, as well as Bijan Robinson should be feasting in this game.
Okay, yeah, was debating that score, Dylan, but I went a little bit higher for both sides. I got Texas winning this one, 48-13. Now my question is, can Texas put up another 70 like they did against Tech, or are they going to let Kansas creep into this game and make it maybe not an upset loss or anything, but just a game that stresses out all the fans and adds another 4 years to our life? You know, that's something that you're going to have to see on Saturday. Like you said, Bijan Robinson, this is an opportunity for him to really crank up his numbers and get some sponsorships just from his play. But yet again, things to watch out for are quarterback for both sides of the ball. I think the Longhorns are able to win, but it should be an entertaining game for Texas and maybe a confidence builder if things go the right way for them. Now, what do you guys think about Saturday's matchup against Kansas? Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.